Get my 6. Yeah, you probably missed that. For a lot of you who are new to the channel, you don't know what that is or what that means. It's kind of my trademark. Get my 6. It's a military term. It means watch behind me, because you never know who or what may or may not show up in the background of some of these videos. Now, I'm making this video today from a different angle, from a different location. I usually make it up in the woods or up just on our side of the wood line at our campground, but I'm doing it from the top of our field where my son, who's an amazing 12-year-old quarterback, learned to play football. So I'm going to show you that view real quick, and I'm going to talk to you about some interesting things. I'm going to talk to you about life, okay? But have a view. Here's my view. This is why I like to sit up here. There's our big field. Here's our crepe myrtles that we planted. This is almost the size of a football field. This is where my son and I and his friends and our team play football. So anyway, aside from the real practice fields and real football fields we play on, again, get my 6. So my lawyer has advised me not to discuss the class action lawsuit. So I won't, and I'm going to leave it at that, okay? But I'm not going to retract the video I made about that or anything about that. But I am going to discuss with you a little bit about life, and here's why. Because I think I've finally figured out how to word something. Existence is chaos. Think about that. Existence is chaos. Now, there are 2 theories on how we got here, how we came to be. There's the creationist theory, which supports the idea that a God said, let this be, and then boom, there it was, okay? And then there is the scientific explanation of the Big Bang theory. Everything was just swirling chaotically, and over millions of billions of years, certain elements came together and created combinations that would eventually lead to matter. Matter existed. Matter has always existed since existence. Compounds. Elements became compounds. They became building blocks for what is, which would eventually lead to life on this planet, potentially others. Well, that's the Big Bang Theory really is about chaos. Things swirling around in such an unplanned way that eventually things just made sense. It's interesting. I was talking to a gentleman the other day that I've just recently met and gotten to know a little bit. He brought up a very valid point that I don't think any of us could disagree with. He's a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. He's actually a brigade commander. And he was telling me about a book he read, because I was telling him the story that I shared on this channel here not too long ago about meeting a cashier just in downtown in Charlottesville here, whose parents actually bought the mansion that my grandmother grew up in Boston, after having been kidnapped by a notorious pirate. What are the odds of that, right? So I'm telling this guy this, and he points out a fact that I'd never heard worded the way he said it. He was talking about a book he read, but he said the main point of the book was, because I use the word serendipity, and I think this guy doesn't really believe in that. I do, though. But he said that the point of this book he read was that unexplainable things happen regularly. They happen all the time. That's a fact. That's a fact. So, we could say, well, it was the ghost of my great-grandfather who kidnapped my grandmother, Moses Knickerbocker. You can Google it. This is a true story. Brought us together. Whatever. Strange, unexplainable things happen often. It's true. Well, that's kind of the chaos thing here with this. Stay with me. A lot of people have said you miss my videos, you miss the way I think outside of the box, I don't think like other people. Thank you. I consider that a compliment. For most of my life, because of that, I felt like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. but I don't anymore. Uh, I'm a huge Muhammad Ali fan. For those of you who have been following the channel for a long time, you know that last summer my family and I were fortunate enough to visit the Ali Center in Ohio. Where was that? Was it Columbus or Cincinnati? No, St. Louis. No, I'm sorry, that's Missouri. Louisville, Kentucky. I just sounded like a total idiot. Louisville, Kentucky. That's where Muhammad Ali's from, and he has his museum is there. It's called the Ali Center. I was watching a video of him one time talking that I could relate to so much. He says he feels like he's on the outside looking in, like he's looking down at all this stuff going on. But because he makes the choice to disengage himself from the norm, he's kind of like on the outside looking in. He's looking down, look at all, what are these crazy people doing down there? And he's just staying away from it. Now he goes down there, or he would go down there. He's passed on now. To be involved with it to the degree that he had to, but he preferred to spend his time up above it. I could relate to that so much because I feel the same way. So I'm going to share a story with you, something that happened today, the inspiration behind this video, and this will all make more sense. So my beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, and I went hiking today. Our wonderful son Daniel is at a friend's house. He's staying with a friend. So we went hiking for a few hours. It was a long hike, and it's hot. It's 90 degrees. There was the canopy, so the shade was nice, and there was a breeze. But it was still, we got to work out. She's in there right now, laying on the couch. I'm like, honey, this is terrible. I'm going to be 50 in 3 months. You're 35, and you can't even keep up with me. I mean, I'm like ready to do yard work, man. You know, she's in there like, oh, God, I'm worn out. So we ran into a couple on the trail. They were probably in their mid-60s. Wonderful couple, especially the guy. So we're just talking. We talked for like 10 minutes, short, small talk. They're new to the area. And it came up, you know, it's obvious. My wife is Filipina. And so the woman looks at me. She asked my wife if she was from the Philippines. She says, yeah, I lived there for 28 years until I came here like 7 years ago. And she looks at me and she goes, you're obviously not, I would assume. And I laughed. I said, no, I'm not. I said, but I am from a third world country. That's one of the reasons my wife and I get along so well, because we're both from third world countries. And she's like, where are you from? I said, West by God, Virginia. And then they laughed. It's funny. They laughed. That's one of my jokes, one of my running jokes. Sadly, it's really not too much of a joke. But, and it's nothing I'm ashamed of. I'm not proud of it because I've never understood why people claim they are proud to be from wherever, because we had no say in it. We had no choice in it. Am I proud to be an American? You better believe it. And I served my time in the U.S. military and the Army, and I fought in Iraq for this country. But am I proud to be from America? No, because I had no say in that. But I am proud to be American, and I always will be, okay? So anyway, the conversation goes on. They find out we have a son who was born in the Philippines, spent his first 6 years in life there. And they asked me, you know, and I told them I lived there for 6 years. And she says, so what took you to the Philippines? And I said, insanity. Because I don't lie. Listen, I'm going to tell you how to identify a liar, especially people over 40. If you're talking to somebody and they're claiming to be where they are at that stage in their life, at that particular stage in their life, because they planned it that way and everything went according to plan, you, my friend, are talking to a liar. Because existence is chaos. And our best laid plans become coulda, woulda, shoulda. You want to make God laugh? And here I'll revert to the creationist theory that I heard this years ago. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Yeah. So I told them insanity. And they were like, huh? I said, I was in the war in Iraq. When I came home, I was a mess. I was a hot mess. And it wasn't really necessarily because of anything that happened in Iraq as much as it was what happened in my absence here at home while I was in Iraq. And all of you veterans out there who deployed and who served in combat will get this. Not those of you who served during peacetime or never deployed, and no disrespect to you. But if you've deployed to a combat zone, you know the biggest trauma isn't necessarily what happens there. Now, for some it is. But it's when you get back and you see how much two things: how much life has changed, and number two is how many of the things that you thought were so just ain't so. But you come home, you had a family when you left. Well, now your family's gone. They're in another state, or in my situation, they're in another country. Your truck's gone, your house is gone, your bank's been cleaned out, all this. You know, you're over there fighting the good fight, and you come home to find out that anybody who had the ability to take advantage of you in your absence did. It's a common story. So anyway, and I didn't go into that detail with this couple, but they said, what took you to the Philippines? I said, insanity. I said, I came home from the war in Iraq. Things were different than they were before I went, and I could not fit in to this society. I said, no, I'm going to take this back. I said I could not fit into society, so I went to the Philippines, and I had all intentions of never coming home. And of course, Karen, we'll call her that. That's not her name, but we'll call her that because of her response to that. She goes, oh, because they don't have a society there. Crazy Karen eyes. I didn't even go down that rabbit hole with her. I meant no disrespect towards the Filipino people or their culture, both of whom in which I love. She knew exactly what I meant, but she was pulling the Karen card. And you know, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I live right outside of Charlottesville, what a lot of people in Virginia refer to as the People's Republic of Charlottesville. She saw the opportunity to take a cheap shot and make it sound as if I was saying something that I wasn't. Because, hey, why not? I am a middle-aged rural white male, right? So I ignored her and continued to talk to her husband mostly at that point, who was a wonderful, wonderful gentleman, and she was okay. And once she saw that I wasn't taking the bait and I was going to play that game, she backed down. Jeez, Karen, calm down, Karen. But it turns out she'd never been to the Philippines. She's never been there. We found it later in conversation, but by God, she knew. So here's my point. Of course, yes, they have a society there. And here's why I started with the concept of existence being chaos. Because about an hour later, when Dearly and I reached the summit of that hike, I had this big aha moment, and I wanted to share it with you, and I want to get it on film in case if I forget. And that aha moment was this. Creation is chaos. And of course, there's a society in the Philippines, and there's a society here in America. There's the Western society, there's First World Society, and there's Third World Society. I've spent about 8 years combined living in third world countries, Middle East, Southeast Asia, and I've traveled across Europe, love England, got a lot of fans, a lot of followers from England. It's a beautiful country. And of course, home is here, man. Home is, you know, right outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm not going to say exactly where, but this is home. I worked damn hard to be able to buy this 6 acres worth of dirt and a house that sits on it, and I've worked damn hard to keep it, and I will continue to work damn hard until my days are finished to preserve it and make sure it goes to my wife and my son and my grandchildren. I mean, we're starting a legacy here with this place. Now, we're going to go back and forth, and I don't want to give any details out about this yet. A lot of it is because of advice given to me by my attorney, but I do love the Philippines. That's our second home. That's our home away from home unless we're there. Then, of course, the Charlottesville area, Virginia, is our home away from home when we're in the Philippines. As from the eyes of a Westerner, from the eyes of an American, as messed up as some of the culture in third world countries might seem, it makes more sense than it does in America, the greatest country on earth. Period. I was going to say in my humble opinion, but I don't think it's opinion. I think that's fact. And if you don't agree with me, all you people that whine and bitch and complain about how messed up this country is, go spend some time in another country, especially a third world country. And I'm not saying go to a 5-star resort for 2 weeks. No, you go out and you live among the people for a couple of years and then come home and bitch and complain about how bad you have it here, all your first world problems. Okay? So anyway, here's the difference. Here is the difference between, because she was trying to put words in my mouth about that society thing, but it did get me thinking about the differences to compare and contrast. Here's what I think it is. Existence is chaos. It makes no sense why we are even here. Now, the creationists say that this all-powerful, omnipotent being said, let there be light. He created the earth, and the earth was without form. And then he said, on this day, he said this, and boom, it's there. You know what? I do not say this to disrespect anybody's beliefs. I do not say this to disrespect the Christian faith, because I don't believe in doing that. And, it's funny. They want to call you Islamophobic for disrespecting the Islamic faith, or they want to call you anti-Semitic for disrespecting the Jewish faith. But in America, it's like you can bash Christians all you want, no one cares. I think that's wrong. It is equally wrong to bash or judge a Christian as it is a Muslim or a Jew. But for some reason, whatever, the idea of creationism to me sounds like a fairy tale. I'm not saying that it is, and I'm not saying that that's not the way it worked. I don't know. But I am a writer. I write fiction, and it sounds like a pretty good story to me. I'm also I am an objectivist. Objectivism is a philosophy created by an author named Ayn Rand. She's known mostly for writing Atlas Shrugged, The Fountainhead. I think I've read every one of her books. I don't think she's written a book, but you use logic. Now, is it logical for me to believe that an omnipotent presence said, let there be this, and that, and then it was? No. I think that's too simple. That's a simple explanation for people that can't really understand the big picture, and they try to simplify it. And again, I say that with no disrespect. I do believe in science. I do believe science is very much real. So I buy more into the Big Bang Theory, the chaos theory, that, this stuff just spun until, boom, it came together in enough proportion to where it created what is. Now, with that said, this is why I believe American culture, advanced cultures, first world cultures are more difficult to live in than third world cultures in very many ways. We are too strict. We're too stringent. I've got a good friend who's married to a Filipina woman, and he's always talking about how they're thinking about going back to the Philippines and living there. And his reason is because he has a kid, my son's age. They're good friends. We're all good friends. He doesn't have to worry about school shootings there in the Philippines. And I agreed with him. I said, yeah, you're right. Because this is an option we're considering because of the busing situation where our local county has refused to provide the children that live more than 15 minutes away from school with busing services anymore. So we are talking about potentially going back to the Philippines and either doing homeschool, virtual school, private school there, because this isn't going to work for us, this whole busing thing. And if my lawyer's watching this, he's pissed because I've said too much already. But my friend says, I'm thinking about taking my family to the Philippines because they don't have school shootings there. And I say, you know what? I agree with you, and we've thought of that as well. Because they don't. They just don't have school shootings there. And he says to me, well, because they just don't have all the guns. Bullshit. Yes, they do. And I told him that. And I don't typically cuss on this channel. They do have all the guns. They have a lot of guns. Most people in the Philippines own a firearm. Now, do they own it legally? No, most of them are unregistered, but they do have them. What they don't have is our degree of mental illness. I am completely convinced that the school shooting problems in America, the mass shooting problems in America, is not because of the guns. It's because of the people are freaking crazy. We're crazy. There is such a high degree of unchecked mental illness in this society that it's unfathomable. They have guns in other countries, but they don't have school shootings in other countries because the people aren't as crazy as we are here. Now, why are we so crazy? Because we try to contain the chaos. Listen, in the Philippines, other third world countries, they have their societies basically are unorganized chaos. They're focusing on their next meal. They're worried about where their next meal is coming from. They're not worried about being offended because somebody might use a pronoun that they don't prefer. They are worried about their next meal. In America, we have it so soft that we have the luxury of being offended by everyone and everything. For example, hiking in the trail today, the woman obviously took offense to the insinuation that this other country doesn't have a society. Oh, whatever. They look for slights that are not there and that do not exist because we have the comfort here to do that. Now, our downfall is that we try to organize the chaos. Philippine society, for example, the example I'm using here, and mind you, I lived there for 6 years. So these are not statements based upon opinions or statements based upon what I saw on some legacy news channel, nor opinions based upon what I read in a trade journal, or opinions based upon, yeah, well, my friend was there and he told me this. These are views based upon personal experiences. You can always disagree with my opinion, but you can't retract my experience. Okay? So based upon my experience, third world countries, the ones I've been in, they don't try to organize the chaos. They focus on what's important. Where's my next meal coming from? Where's my kid? Is my kid in school? They're supposed to be there. In America, we try to organize the chaos. We try to put it in a box. And what that does is that creates anxiety, that creates stress, it creates insanity. Because you can't put chaos in a box. At any given time, anywhere you go in America, you are more than likely in violation of some law. You just don't know it. Because there's so many of them. And so many of them, of course, are not enforced. But you are at any given moment in violation of a law. Because our society is so stringent. And what that does is that drives people insane. It drives people nuts. Adultery. I'm going to use this as an example. Dearly and I were talking about this the other day. Adultery is against the law here. Did you know it? Yeah, adultery is against the law in the Philippines too. You're like, okay, big deal. Guess what? If you get caught committing adultery in the Philippines, you go to jail. She had a friend, a female, whose husband was cheating on her. She waited until that guy was at the mistress's house getting their thing on, called the police. Police caught him in the act. Dude's still in jail because it's a crime. It's a crime in America. They don't enforce it. It's viewed as grounds for divorce. Okay, and a lot of folks can either get alimony based upon that. Like if you're a woman and you're married to a high-income earner, you're going to get a check, brah. But if you're a man and you're a high-income earner, you can protect that income if you catch your wife doing it, right? So anyway, please forgive this background noise of a tractor. I do live in farm country, right? So that was the big aha I had, and I wanted to share it. And I know I'm long-winded, but a lot of people miss that. They're like, man, I miss your long-winded videos. I like the way you think. Listen, existence is chaos. Existence is chaos. And when you try to contain the chaos and organize it, you're asking for insanity. So, that woman, well, she didn't need to point it out to her today. She totally understood where I was coming from. But, you know, when I got back from Iraq and I had the issues going on, I couldn't make it here. I just couldn't make it here. I can now. And the way I do it is not that I'm no longer a square peg going into a round hole. I'm still the square peg, and that round hole's still there. But like the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, I accept myself for who I am, and I accept my situation, and I stay up here and I look down and I watch the insanity. So there's a philosopher / writer / life coach named Eckhart Tolle who says, anytime you're in a situation in which you're uncomfortable or you're not in agreement with, you can do one of three things. You've got three options. Number one, change a situation? Can you change it? So for the example we're using here with this busing issue, the county we live in has decided not to provide busing to and home from school. Can we change that? No. I'm not the non-transportation director of this county. So we can't change it. Okay. So he says, number 2, accept it. Now, are we willing to accept it? No, we're not, because of lost revenues. I'm not going to use exact numbers, but I'm going to be close. If I were to put in the time driving that would be required for me to take my son to and from school this year, I would lose out. It's over 6 digits. I know the value of my time with the social media. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, Sick Twisted Humor. We've got almost 700,000 followers there. The Amazon affiliate marketing we do, my writing, the books, it would be about 100. If I were to put forth the time into driving and take that time away from what I do, and it's crazy because you guys watch me like, this guy don't do nothing. He needs a job. If you only knew what I do that you don't see, it would cost me $150,000 in lost revenues if I were to do all that driving. Now, would we be hurting? No. I would still have a 6-digit income, and the first digit is not a 1. But I want that other $150,000. There's a reason I do I love what I do, and so it never feels like work. They say that when you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I feel like I don't work, but I put in a hell of a lot of hours not working, brah, and I'm very much rewarded for my efforts, and it's a wonderful thing. It's just a wonderful thing. So I'm not walking away from $150,000 in lost revenues. So no, I'm not going to accept it. Can't change it. I'm not willing to accept it. So the third option is you've got to remove yourself from the situation. If you're not willing to accept it, and if you can't change it, then you have to remove yourself from the situation. That's where we're going. And I'm not going to say too much at this time about this, but I usually tell them in a different order. I always say either change it, remove yourself from the situation, or accept it, because usually the answer is acceptance. But in this situation, we're not accepting it, so we're going to remove ourselves from the situation. So my lawyer's going to be pissed. I kind of let the cat out of the bag, but not in detail. You're going to love the details. Let me tell you, you want to talk about some really interesting videos? They're coming, man. Here and on Facebook over at Sick Twisted Humor, the reels. You like the backdrop? I had a guy approach me. We're at a UVA football clinic this summer with my son, who's got an arm like a freaking cannon. I got to tell you the story. Proud papa moment. So we're at football practice the other day. We were able to get him back into his old flag league. He was going to play tackle this year for the first year, but because of the busing situation, we can't do it because of the times of the practice, the days. That would have been even more driving. That would have cost me $225,000 in lost revenues. So they're scrimmaging, right? And he's quarterbacking, and there's all these new kids on the team, and it's a lot of the old kids. Good times. So he's in the huddle. There's time for one play, and he's on his own 1-yard line. Now, the flag football field is 50 yards long. It's not 100 yards. It's 50. He tells the guys in the huddle, he looks at the receivers, he says, run to the end zone, get there as fast as you can, and the ball will be waiting on you when you get there. He breaks the huddle, and these kids are like, they've never played with him. They're like, damn, field's 50 yards long. We're 12 years old. The average 12-year-old can throw 22 yards. The average high school quarterback can throw 37, and the average college quarterback can throw 42, okay? So Daniel, from his own 1-yard line, takes a snap, waits a couple seconds, launches the ball, throws it into the end zone on the other end of the field, literally 50 yards away. It was a 49-yard pass. The kid gets there just in time to look up and catch the ball, caught it in the end zone, and then fell out of bounds. Touchdown. It's incredible. God, where was they even going with this? I don't know. Whatever. We're coming back for football season no matter where we go. Well, just a little, let's say, yeah. So I just wanted to share all that with you. A lot of you say, I miss your videos. I miss the way you think. Let me tell you, none of us are victims. Now, there are victims. There are victims, okay? People get raped. People get robbed. People get beaten. These candy asses that go around looking for slights that aren't there, they are not victims. But even when we are victims, we can choose to view ourselves as victims, and we will live the life of a victim. Or we can choose to be victors and be victorious and win and live the life of champions. Make that latter choice. I hope you got something out of this. Existence is chaos. You can't contain it. If you try, it's going to drive you nuts. Those of us who have figured it out, we're up there looking down. Saying, good luck, brah. Not me. Been there, done that. Used to be 8 different medications. None now. 0. Nothing. Not even for blood pressure or whatever. It's crazy. You know what kind of medication I take? Exercise. Daily. Healthy diet. And living life to its fullest. Because there's so much to be lived. Turn off your TVs. Throw it out in the field. Leave your house. Go outside and play. It's in a video game. You don't get a second chance, man. We're here once. Make something of it. Make something of yourself. Enjoy it. See you for more next time.